As a reporter, one of the things I've always noticed about you is you're not very good at hiding your true feelings. This week, you said Barack Obama, quote, doesn't understand national security, has no background, no experience on these issues. A few weeks ago, you said he's deceiving voters with eloquent but empty rhetoric. Putting aside your differences on issues, straight talk, is Barack Obama qualified to be president?
If the voters decide that of America, absolutely. I believe that my talent and my background and my experience, which has led to my judgment, is, I think, qualifies me more, obviously, or I wouldn't be seeking the presidency. But let me just say again, that was in response, when I said he was inexperienced and does not have the background, to the charge of this, quote, 100 years in Iraq. And it was obvious when you read the whole quote, and I hope that at some point we could see that, where I was in an exchange with a voter in New Hampshire, town hall meeting, the kind of exchanges that I enjoy most. He said, how long are you going to be there? I said, it could be 100 years, but it's a matter of U.S. casualties, and we have presence in countries like South Korea, Japan, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very clear. And Senator Obama and anyone who reads that knows that I didn't think we were in a 100-year war.
But I want to go to the bigger issue, which is that you said Obama doesn't understand national security, has no experience, no background on these issues. I understand the voter is going to make up their minds. In John McCain's opinion, does someone who has no background in national security, is he fit to be commander-in-chief?
Again, I'm not ducking your question, Chris. You could make an argument maybe that Jack Kennedy was not, quote, qualified in 1960 as opposed to Richard Nixon. The voters decided on Jack Kennedy. So I can't dictate what the voters will decide. All I can do is match my credentials and my knowledge and background up against Senator Obama's or Senator Clinton. That race is not decided yet. And I will gladly stand not only on that background and experience, but my vision and my ability to lead this country in difficult times.
You gave a major economic speech recently in which you said,
it's not the duty of government to bail out and reward those who act irresponsibly, whether they're big banks or small borrowers.
After that, Senator, one columnist compared you to Mr. Potter, the banker in It's a Wonderful Life. What would you do to help the thousands of Americans who right now are in the process of losing their homes, or do you feel, as you said in your speech, that's not the duty of government?
Look, Americans are hurting right now. Americans are sitting around the kitchen table as we speak, trying to keep the American dream, and that is ownership of their own home. They don't know if they can have to get another job. They don't know if the challenges are enormous right now, and Americans are hurting. The key to it is not to bail out people who speculated or people who engaged in unsavory practices. The key to it is get the lender and the borrower together. We know how hard that is because of identifying the lender, but there's ways to do it. The key to it is to support this legislation, which is going through the Senate right now, which I think will move the ball forward down the field, such as individual deductions and larger deductions for home loan mortgage payments, the purchase of mortgages which are bad by local authorities, increasing funds for counseling so that people who are in difficulty will better recognize what their options are. Of course there's a role for government, but it's not to reward greedy speculators. It is not to reward people who misbehave, and it certainly isn't a huge expenditure of taxpayers' dollars, which in the long run could exacerbate the problems that exist. On the issue of Bear Stearns, very quickly, every financial expert I know says that if it had failed, it would have rippled throughout the entire financial community and would have caused greater problems, which eventually would have come down on the average citizen if our economy continues to decline the way that it's been doing. So I'm ready to act. And I understand how terrible this is for so many millions of American families. And I understand the challenges, and I'm prepared to meet them. And that is limited government intervention, but where government is required, Let's go ahead and do it. We passed a stimulus package. People are going to be getting checks in the month of May. Maybe they'll be able to help boost the economy a little bit, but there's no magic wand here that can be waved.
Let's turn to foreign policy. You acknowledge you were surprised by the recent Iraqi offensive in Basra. In the end, the Iraqi government failed to oust those Shiite militias. Doesn't that raise serious questions about the continued weakness of the central government in Baghdad?
Well, actually, when I say I was surprised, our authorities in Iraq were surprised. The State Department, it was about a 48-hour...
The whole government was surprised.
Yeah, about a 48-hour window. It's interesting. We have asked the government time after time to act effectively, that we want this government to act. They acted. Now, obviously, the results were mixed. Obviously, there were problems, and Maliki, in my view, should have waited until we had concluded the Battle of Mosul, which is going on as we speak. They do have control of the port of Basra now. That's one of the major economic areas of Iraq because of the oil that goes through there. It was Al Sadr that declared a ceasefire, not Maliki. And they continue.
But it was brokered by the Iranians, who actually may have more clout with both Al Sadr. I mean, let me just ask you the question from this point of view. General Petraeus is coming to testify in the next couple of days. A lot of talk about the surge and how that's helped damp down the violence. Some people would say because there was a spike of violence during this Basra battle, maybe Al Sadr's decision to hold the ceasefire is as responsible as the surge is. And if he changes his mind, we're back in the frying pan.
Well, in respect, I don't think Sadr would have declared the ceasefire if he thought he was winning. Most times in history, military engagements, the winning side doesn't declare the ceasefire. The second point is that overall the Iraqi military performed pretty well. 6 months ago, it would have, or 8 or 9 months ago, it would have been unthinkable for Maliki
this week that 1,000 soldiers refused to fight or deserted.
And there were many, many thousands who were fighting there. Compare that with 2 years ago when the army was basically unable to function in any way effectively. Look, I didn't particularly like the outcome of this thing, but I am convinced that we now have a government that is governing with some effect and a military that is functioning very effectively. Up in Mosul, where some of the best units are, they're functioning well. I've always said, Chris, this is long and hard and tough. We're paying a huge penalty for 4 years of a failed strategy that I fought hard against, and I believe this strategy has succeeded and will succeed and can succeed. But it's long and hard and tough.